Hi guys, welcome to Clockwork and Noodles, the channel where Becca continues to break the anime down of winter. We are now approaching the end of the season, so if you haven't already, check out the video where I crown my top 3 anime of winter 2021, which anime came first and what were my honourable mentions. Also in the same video you will get what I am watching for spring 2021. I've got a really fun lineup. I think there's some really interesting animes coming out that I really want to get my claws into, break down and start talking about them and discussing them with you guys. So make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss out on the next season coming your way. Hopefully I'm covering an anime that you too also plan to watch, or maybe I'm covering quite a few of them. There is also a Discord channel for you guys to go ahead, lurk, get notified whenever videos go up. I also tell you guys if there is a delay on the channel, and I get to talk to you guys just in general outside of the realms of YouTube. So plenty of cool stuff to go. We are approaching the end of Kemono Jihen now. There is only one episode to go. I can imagine it's going to be the wrap up of this little story arc we've had. It's a possibility that I'm predicting we're going to get a cliffhanger of an ending. I think it's going to end on something bad because we've got one episode to wrap up, and I don't think it's going to end 100% in a good place, but I will discuss what I think for the ending at the end of this episode. Let's continue with Akira's nightmare. Last week we saw that our trio had been frozen. However, our Lama-kun, I've been calling him Lama-kun recently, so Lama-kun it is. Lama-kun tells us that they're simply not dead. This week we get quite a bit of the Yui backstory, as we actually see him ascend to the position of village chief. This is probably where the stress upon him starts to grow. The flower that we see in the episode, the flower that Akira gives to Yui, in the Latin version, guys, it is a Camellia japonica red, aka the Japanese rose. As mentioned by Akira, these roses often grow on bushes. To note that the bushes can be quite big. So these things can grow pretty big. I kind of always imagine a bush to be quite small. These things can be pretty hefty. Also impressive to note that they're pretty difficult to keep. Often enough that they may grow, but they may not flower. So actually getting them to flower is quite an achievement. The Camilla plant means love, affection, and admiration. And it is a symbol and a visual aid to Akira's admiration for his brother, because he has nothing but love and affection for him. We are then introduced to the Null Stone. A bit more information on the stone itself, and it is the Null Stone which is creating the snowstorm which hides the village away so it can stay hidden. It led to a few things in my brain telling me, wait, so if Yui has the stone now, it's a possibility that the village is no longer hidden. That snowstorm would have probably dissipated. During this sequence, mainly the entire episode, the music is really, really nice. Absolutely love the music in this sequence, where Yui starts to learn the downsides to the village that come with being a clan leader in charge of everybody. We also learn that the face cloths worn by all the women were there to prevent a hierarchy being formed based on looks, so it's more gone by ability than anything else. But it does also seem to be causing a social upset behind the scenes. It might be there trying to prevent something, but it's also causing issues elsewhere. This is where Yui starts to sink further and further because he is surrounded by negativity. He's surrounded by all of the social struggles of everybody around him. The Camilla plant is used this episode to pull Yui back. It also allows him to kind of regain himself. It symbolises Akira's love. He essentially provides him with that escape from the heavy village of the atmosphere. He allows him to go back to somewhere more comfortable whenever they're together, that he can be his real self, and he probably doesn't have to put on any airs and graces. Back in the real time, we have Akira using his brother's devotion to fulfill his wishes to actually sneak in a request which would help save our frozen trio. He asks for salt. We often see roads being gritted during the winter because it prevents the ice from forming and it breaks it down. But these stakes start to increase as Inari arrives on scene with Nobumaru. Haven't seen him in a while. Haven't really seen her in a while, but I'm not actually complaining about that. Inari isn't a top character for me. Not really fussed by seeing her or anything. Kabane unfreezes. We get quite a nice heart-to-heart. Kabane tells Akira that he misses him, and I kind of admits that the office life would be better if Akira was around, where Akira starts to realise that he's got a bit of a dilemma on his hands. He realises that if Kabane goes and fights his brother, one of them might be hurt. He doesn't want either of them to be hurt, and his friends, if they end up being refrozen, could actually die. but he also knows that he can't talk to Yui as he is right now. To prevent them obviously freezing to death, Cabernet would have to go up against Yui, and Akira also doesn't want that to happen. Akira lies pretty hard. He decides he wants to push away Cabernet to protect his brother, protect them from being unharmed. And simply this season we have seen quite a few characters telling other characters that they hate them in this quite dramatic style. Nice link noticing that the voice actor for Mihai, none other than my favourite character from Attack on Titan, Erwin. So figured I'd put a little link in there just because it seemed like it was a good place to have a link to Attack on Titan in this episode. We get the soft piano theme start to play, the main theme again in its piano form. The music this episode, probably my favourite episode for musical. It's just an episode where the music actually stood out to me more than it ever has. Akira protects Cabernet by taking his brother simply away, but he also ensures that Cabernet has the materials to save the others. We can see that Akira is freezing his own tears to appear strong. He knows he needs to be strong. He knows that this is not the time for crying. The visual of the tears hitting the floor, I really like that visuals for some reason. I like the way they pair it up with the sound visual. The goodbye that Cabernet sees and receives from Akira is a painful one because it definitely looks pained. But the goodbye is simply to spare Cabernet and the others. Thank God for our Lamakun here to help Cabernet actually finish off the job that Akira was starting. Where let's go back to Inari with the perhaps worst timing. Whenever she pops up, it's always the worst timing. You don't want her appearing at this point. When she suddenly appears behind Cabernet, I was like, oh no, she's gonna stop him saving Inagami and that lot, but doesn't. But at the same time, I think she's in the clear as of yet. Naturally, she has her eyes on the Null Stone. She simply drops the bombshell, perhaps of the episode, that the Null Stone is linked to the Life Stone and thus linked to Cabernet's parents. So she tries to actually get him to work for her or work with her, exchange for being able to apparently find out something about his parents. The visual from the backstory, again, we get quite a nice little visual where we see a visual gap formed between the brothers. This gap is here. It shows you the gap between the two brothers that has started to grow. Akira starts to notice that his brother is down, is gloomy, he's often quite stressed, and Akira simply just doesn't really get much time to talk to him anymore. So they only really talk before going to sleep and this one little stroll that they've actually been able to get in. But Akira tries his best to actually change this. So in the visual again, we see Akira then closing up the gap. He jumps to grab him. He tries to remove the distance visually, and he tries to console and comfort his own brother. His brother even tells us what Shiki and Cabernet realised last week. Akira's skill, even though it may not appear to a skill to him at times, is he's simply the mood setter. He is the person in the room who can set the mood. With his smiling, he can comfort other people as well. Yui wants to protect that smile. He wants to protect him from becoming tainted, which then leads to some of the big changes where Akira announces indirectly that he has hit puberty, and Yui wants to protect Akira. He doesn't want the women crowding him. He doesn't want Akira to even be part of all of this. So he starts to lie to his brother. And he ends up trying to sacrifice himself to the village to protect Akira and let him actually leave. Akira's departure, followed by some beautiful music once again. This is my favourite episode for music. Whenever the music actually presented itself to me, it just fit. It set the scene. It really was nice. We've got some really nice instrumentals going on. There's a bit at one point where there's some really nice cello playing. It just sounds really good. And when it's playing, it conveys a bit more of a sadness. A lot of cello pieces that I really like are often in the minor key. So this episode as well, we see a few times that the pieces are playing in a minor. So the soft piano music that is playing, which is essentially the main theme, it is the minor version. It's playing sadly. It's playing to convey something else. And often enough, we've seen it being used to show the sadness between Akira and his brother's situation. We get a red filter on the screen as the danger re-emerges in the form of a betrayal, the lies of the women who have had Akira tracked and followed. They promised that he could leave. They were never actually going to keep to that promise. And these are essentially the events that lead him to finally take the extreme of going up to find a Null Stone, where it cuts back. So we can presume that is the point when he shoved the Null Stone into his chest. Nobumaru fails in taking Akira hostage. The sequence ends up with Akira being locked in a cage, as we see Nobumaru full body transform into the Kitsune. Inari and Cabernet sequence is very, very intense as she's trying to bargain with Cabernet to get him on side, where the llama decides to surprise us all by conveying a message from the frozen Inagami, telling him to go and save Akira. Inagami is just waiting to defrost, where Inari tells Inagami that he has grown weak. But Inagami also tells her that he'd rather not become strong at a child's expense, because we know Inari has been using children in the form of Kon. She used Kon just to do her bidding and then kind of cast her aside when Kon had no use anymore. And we're also seeing this with Nobumaru. Inari is also using Nobumaru. The fight with Yui and Nobumaru is a fantastic way to also end, as we see Cabernet trying to catch up. And that leads into my questions that I'm left with, my afterthoughts for the episode, mainly as well with Inari and Nobumaru. There was an episode with Nobumaru's entrance itself, and he actually tells us that he hates Inari, which makes me start to wonder if Inari has done something to him. She does say that she wants to show Inagami the power of using a child. Those aren't the exact words, but it's something along those lines. And it does make me wonder whether Nobumaru actually hates Inari because of something that she has done to him. Afterthoughts as well on the fact that the village is either doomed or it is no longer a secret because that storm is gone. I presume the storm dissipated. Also concerning because Nobumaru tells us that the null stone feeds off life as well. So is everybody in that village dead? Akira's lie to save both. He simply couldn't find a way to save one, save the other, or even talk to Yui. So he had to lie. He had to do that painful lie to lead his brother away. But Akira still needs to talk to Yui really badly. We need this to happen. Akira needs to get brave. He needs to talk to Yui and try and talk some sense into him. Interesting afterthoughts with the fact that the Null Stone and the Life Stone are connected. They're essentially brothers. Then it makes me wonder about the link to Cabinet's parents in general, because there's definitely a big plot going on there. But that's something I don't think we'll see this season. We've only got one episode left. So where do I think the anime is going to end? I'm going to make a few predictions. I will predict that I think the Null Stone is going to fall into Inari's hands. I presume that Yui's probably going to end up losing it to Nobumaru. But whether Nobumaru will give it to Inari, I'm not 100% sure. He might do, but he also doesn't like Inari. So there's a possibility if Nobumaru gets it, he might keep it for himself. They could, if they really wanted to go extreme, they could kill off Yui. Have him leaving us on an emotional ending to the season, perhaps. So I'm predicting that we might see some heartache. Depends on how mean they're feeling, where they want to end it. Whether we get that season 2 or not. I hope we do get a season 2 because Kemono Jihen has actually really surprised me. I've had a lot more entertainment from it than I thought I would. I didn't have a great deal of information when I put it onto my list for breaking down. I simply needed a 4th anime. I was quite light this season, didn't have anything to put in the position of breakdowns. So I moved Kemono Jihen up there because I felt like it could be a good content filler, something to talk about, something fun just to have out on a channel, but not mean a great deal. But it's actually turned out that Kemono Jihen has actually been the anime that has carried the channel through the seasons. The channel hasn't done very, very well this season. It's kind of been dragged along by things like Kemono Jihen, and even Kemono Jihen isn't doing that great compared to last season. Last season was just a high for the channel. Hopefully the new spring season will revive that high. Kemono Jihen has definitely been a dark horse and has been a bit of a hidden gem this season for me. Cannot wait to see where we go in a second season if we get one. Also can't wait to bring you guys into the new season. I really can't wait. I think spring's going to be a good one. I've got so much good anime that I want to talk about, and there's a lot going on. We've also got the return of an old favourite to the channel, so really excited to see that happening. I hope you guys too are enjoying Kemono Jihen and equally as surprised as me with actually how decent the anime has been. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, sticking with me throughout this season. All of your support means a great deal to me, and I really, really appreciate everything. So I really hope I get to see you next season, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.